Hello and welcome to News Central Television with me, Blessings Musugu. The top stories at this hour. Soldiers reported killed as military rebels Boko Haram insurgents attack in Benue State. Senate to approve President Tinubu's $2.2 billion loan request today. Malian military group calls for resignation of Prime Minister. We've got the details in a moment. Let's begin by telling you that a group of suspected Boko Haram terrorists has launched another attack on Kareto, a nearby border community with Niger and Chad republics in Benue State earlier in the day, just days after a previous attack on the military camp in the area. Sources from the community said the military successfully repelled the attack, preventing any further harm to the residents of Kareto. This incident has once again raised concerns about the ongoing threat posed by the terrorist group in that region. This is as the Benue State government has since issued a statement commiserating with the armed forces and families of the victims. Although there's still no official confirmation of the number of casualties, feelers from local sources say about 20 members of the armed forces were killed. A source from Kareto community who pleaded not to be named said the community is now calm. Earlier on, News Central's Umoru Kirawa joined us on the news to shed more light on the incident.
To the republics of Chad and Niger, and the attack by the insurgents from intelligence sources is unconnected to the route Kareto, the importance of Kareto community to them, because it is believed that Kareto is one of the route of the insurgents. They used to traverse through that axis to go to Chad and Niger and so on and so forth, causing mayhem in the Lake Chad communities. And that is basically why they have continued to attack the community. From this information I got, they attacked the community recently 3 times. They are engaging in a fight with the Nigerian armed forces. The first attack led to the killing of armed forces, which up to now there is no confirmation with regard to the number of casualties, but they killed some military officers in Kareto based on the information we are hearing. And the second attack, the military repelled. The third one, they repelled. And so far, so good. Based on the information I got, everything is calm. Though the community is one of the communities that the government intends to resettle. That is why even recently, some workers engaged in the construction of boreholes and so on and so forth in the community as part of efforts to resettle the community. But the insurgents are trying to destabilize or to disrupt the movement of resettling communities, basically because it is their route and they used to access communities within the Lake Chad.
Now, away from security matters, the Senate is expected to approve the $2.2 billion, about 1.77 trillion naira loan request of President Bola Tinubu today, being Wednesday. This request submitted by the president is part of the external borrowing plan outlined for implementing the 28.7 trillion naira 2024 budget. The president's request was presented to the Senate and the House of Representatives through 3 separate letters, where he also urged lawmakers to consider the passage of the medium-term expenditure framework for 2025 to 2027, the fiscal strategy paper, and amendments to the bill establishing the National Social Investment Program. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, provides more information on this.
Legislative business in both the Senate and the House of Representatives resumed after a week-long recess, starting with the presentation of 3 letters from President Bola Tinubu to Parliament. The first letter requested that Parliament consider the medium-term expenditure framework for 2025 to 2027 and the fiscal strategy paper.
It is with pleasure that I forward here with the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, MTEF and FSP. As the 2025 budget of the federal government of Nigeria will be prepared based on the parameters and fiscal assumptions of the approved 2025 to 2027 MTEF and FSP, it is imperative to seek National Assembly's expeditious legislative action on this submission.
The second later requested that Parliament amends the National Social Investment Program Bill, which aims to enhance the implementation of the government's social investment programs.
Pursuant to Section 58, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, I forward herewith for the consideration and passage by the House of Representatives the National Social Investment Program Agency Establishment Amendment Bill 2024.
The final letter from President Tinubu sought Parliament's approval to borrow over $2.2 billion as part of the 2024 Appropriation Acts.
I write to request for a resolution of the National Assembly to raise the sum of $1,767,610,321,779 naira,
provided as new external borrowing in the 2024 Appropriation Act to part finance the budget deficit of about 9.17 trillion.
After the letters were read to lawmakers, both chambers resolved to addressing other pressing issues for the day. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Now, according to Nairametrics, not less than 6 loan projects have been approved, and they include loans for power, which is $750 million, women empowerment, which is $500 million, girls' education, $700 million, renewable energy, $750 million, economic stability reforms, $1.5 billion, and resource mobilization reform, $750 million, according to findings by Nairametrics. Also, the World Bank may approve 4 loan projects totaling $2 billion for Nigeria this year. If approved, Nigeria will have secured a total of $4.25 billion in loans from the bank this year alone, and a cumulative $6.95 billion under the administration of President Bola Tinubu. We're now joined by strategy consultant Dipo Oyewole to help us make sense of this development. Hello, Dipo. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. Now, Dipo, seeking an additional 1.77 trillion naira in external borrowing despite the ongoing economic challenges in Nigeria, how would you react to this?
Well, borrowing isn't a new thing. Almost, if not every nation of the world does it. However, where the challenge is where it's not adequately deployed into the improvement of the lives of the citizens. Now, people haven't had any issue with any borrowing. I mean, in our personal life, people are even advised that you don't borrow for consumption. You borrow to invest. You borrow to expand your business. You don't borrow to buy clothes. You don't borrow to buy phones and all of that. So it's a basic principle. So there's nothing wrong with borrowing. There's nothing wrong with debt. Debt is a basic financial tool that individuals use, that organizations use, and that nations use as well. However, how it is deployed is where a lot of people and a lot of nations have particular challenges, which is where we have issues with Nigeria and our history of borrowing. Because in time past, we've had a lot of borrowings done, and a lot of Nigerians will tell you that we haven't seen the actual impact of all these monies that have been borrowed to be deployed adequately. And I saw a breakdown that you have on the screen there, where it's saying the loan for power is $750 million. So after we're saying that we're borrowing $750 million for power, can we then have adequate benchmarks to say that after we're able to inject $750 million into power, This is what we'll be generating. This is what Nigerians should expect. They should expect in terms of power generation and access to possibly uninterrupted electricity. We must be able to have these conversations and have it adequately, because if we're not able to adequately peg these borrowings against any clear metric, we just find that we borrow the money, they say they deployed it, and then we don't see any impact of it, which is where Nigerians have a particular problem with the government borrowing. So the place of adequate communication and effective communication in terms of the government with this regard will be for them to adequately let us know that these are the metrics we're looking at. $750 million for power. This is where we are right now for power generation. This is where we want to be, and this is where we are expected to be after injecting $750 million. I mean, basic thing that we do in business, where people get to raise funds, they say they have a Series A, Series B, and you are able to tell investors adequately that, okay, you know what, we have 1 million users, we have 20 people on the team, we need to have access to funding of, let's say, $5 million. This will give us access to 5 million more subscribers, and we'll expand our team from 20 people to 30 people. So these are basic metrics that the Nigerian people need to know. We are borrowing $750 million to inject into the power sector out of the $2.2 billion. This is where we are. This is where to get us to.
All right. Now, how does the new external borrowing request align with Nigeria's current debt profile, and what exactly are the potential implications for the country's long-term fiscal sustainability?
Well, it's not much of a challenge if we're able to adequately prove that we can generate the revenue in multiples and see how we can pay back those loans as expected. Because the problem with debt, I mean, a lot of people will tell you that personally they don't borrow people. And the problem with that is because a lot of people have no intention of paying back, because some people don't even have the wherewithal to be able to pay back those loans. So as a nation, do we have adequate systems in place? Do we have plans in place on how to pay back these loans? That's for the government to answer, okay? But I'm hoping that we have adequate plans to generate revenue internally to be able to service these loans, and not just saying that we're just racking up debt for generations to come. But in terms of our debt profile, of course, it's sort of ever increasing, and we'd like to see it go down drastically, but that will also not happen magically. Revenue is the name of the game. Revenue is the word that we need to pay attention to. We must see how to adequately generate enough revenue to pay back these loans as a when due.
Now, how will the proposed borrowing impact Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves and the relationship that the country has with international creditors and financial institutions?
Well, with regards to the relationship we have with our creditors and international organizations, again, I'll refer back to the private sector. So there's nothing wrong with borrowing. Again, I'll say that. But where you have good standing is where you have a history of paying back as a when due. So if we're able to prove that we can be good debtors, if I can use that word, a lot of folks who are in the international community, our creditors will be more receptive to either potential requests to come, or even when we then need to ask for certain allowances or extensions, they'll be open and willing to give it to us. So it's mostly around us being able to prove and show that we're able to pay back those loans and pay them back adequately as a when due.
All right. Given that the Senate has been asked to review the borrowing request within 24 hours now, do you think the lawmakers will have enough time to conduct a thorough analysis and to consider the long-term implications of this borrowing?
Well, I believe we may be a bit pressed for time, but 24 hours is a very short period. This is something that I would prefer that they deliberate on, and they deliberate on it extensively, and we don't just gloss over it, because we can't just say that we're just borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. I mean, I talk about being able to adequately define the metrics for the terms of the borrowing. Now, these are things that we expect the National Assembly to be able to ask us questions and to have as conversation with the federal government, saying that, so you're saying you want to borrow X amount into this particular part of the economy or into this part of our daily life. What does it get us? And we're able to adequately peg those metrics down and say we're going to hold this to account. If you do not meet these particular metrics. If we're saying we're pumping $750 million into power and we're supposed to get a particular megawatt, it will happen over what period of time? Because we don't want to go back to the time where we invested, or I would say wasted, allegedly $16 billion into the power sector and nothing came of it. We cannot afford it right now. We don't want to go back to those days. We need better management of our resources, either it's internally generated or it's borrowed externally.
All right, thank you so much, strategy consultant Dikbo Oyewole, for joining us and sharing your thoughts on that.
Thank you for having me.
You're still live with us on the news. We go on a short break now, and when we come back, Okpebholo alleged threat says perpetrators angry with him. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, government, Okpebholo, also known as Okpebholo, has alleged that powerful individuals behind oil theft in the country are currently angry at him for exposing their shady deals. Okpebholo, who also alleged constant threats to his life, made the alleged allegations at his hometown in Okpebholo in Baramatu Kingdom during a visit by the members of the Nigerian Bar Association. According to him, a few days ago, some naval personnel had attacked operatives of the Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited, a private outfit hired by the federal government to protect oil and gas infrastructure in some areas in the Niger Delta region, while an arrest of some suspected oil thieves was ongoing along the Port Harcourt creeks. Okpebholo called for synergy between the Navy and other security outfits. He expressed worry that efforts to checkmate crude oil theft were being sabotaged in some quarters. In the meantime, Governor Monday Okpebholo of Edo State has suspended all market unions and associations in Edo State with immediate effect. The governor has also ordered the police and other security agencies in the state to arrest defaulting leaders of the various suspended unions and associations without any delay. Now, the decision of the governor was contained in a communication notice issued by the secretary to the state government, Umar Musa Ikilo. The governor said the decision was informed by the disturbing activities of market unions in the state. Now, he said reports abound that the executives of the unions and associations either outrightly prevent farmers from disposing of their wares directly to consumers at the market or arbitrarily fix prices of staple food at the detriment of the low-income earners in the state. And now in Benue State, the government has approved a minimum wage of 75,000 naira for workers in the state. The governor, Hyacinth Alia, made this known after meeting with representatives of organized labor in Makurdi, the state capital. He says that payment of the remaining 3 months' arrears being owed to workers will commence from January next year. Now, in response, the chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress in the state commended the effort, saying that the increase will improve the well-being of workers in the state.
We had said we would take care of 5 months of your arrears. I know we had taken care of 2 months and 3 months are remaining. With this increase, what we intend to do is we would spread this into January. And I think it would make a lot of common sense. Since I was even the first governor that, declared our intention to do this willingly, but is doing it kind of 1-2 months later. Your 75,000 minimum wage is beginning this month.
As far as the civil service was concerned, before your emergence, we've had a series of problems in the state. But since you came, no civil servant in Benue State has received salaries beyond 23rd of every month. And as a result of this, it has placed us on a good foot that will be able to plan, even though the resources became very small because of the introduction of the removal of fuel subsidy. We want to tell you today, Your Excellency, that the workers of Benue State
Now, a few days after the declaration of Lucky Aiyedatiwa of Ondo State as the winner of last Saturday's governorship election, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has rejected the results of the election. Ajayi, who said he has been studying and examining the election results across the state, disclosed that he would be heading to the tribunal to seek justice. The former deputy governor said he kept silent since the announcement of the results to enable him to investigate what he termed contents of criminality prosecuted by both the APC and the INEC. Ajayi also said the investigation uncovered many actions undertaken to compromise the electoral will of the people. Speaking in a statement through his special advisor, Ayo Fadaka, Ajayi said democracy could not thrive in an environment where unabated criminality was perpetrated in the prosecution of an election by INEC. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has announced the approval of a 1.1 billion naira compensation for property owners affected by the construction of the Airport-Kuje Area Council Road project. The minister made the disclosure during a visit to the site to inspect the ongoing road construction works at the area. Our correspondent, Joshua Imarai, reports.
It was the inspection of the 6-lane dual carriage expressway from the airport road to the Kuje Area Council in Nigeria's federal capital, Abuja. The minister of the FCT also inspected the structures comprising about 13 buildings, including some factories along the road corridor earmarked for demolition. He says that about 1.1 billion naira has been approved for the compensation of the owners of the affected properties affected by the road construction.
The entire estimate they gave is about 1.something billion, 1.1 billion, and to pay for those whose property are affected, like some of these buildings you have seen here, down to the community. So it's about 1.1 billion, and we are going to make it available so that the contractor will not find any excuse for delay.
The minister, who earlier inspected the ongoing construction of the Abuja division of the Court of Appeal and its feeder road, expressed satisfaction with the progress of the projects.
It's progressing as expected. By the grace of God, we believe that September next year, the contractor would have handed over the structure, which is Abuja division of the Court of Appeal. I'm very much impressed with what I've seen. I can also see the construction of the road leading to that edifice. And the contractor is also doing everything possible to see that he meets up to the time.
He also reviewed that approval has been given for the implementation of a minimum wage increase for workers in the Federal Capital Territory. He urged them to be motivated by the increment and boost their productivity for the capital. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Now, 48 hours after the Katako fire incident in Jos, North Local Government Area of Plateau State, north-central Nigeria, reconstruction work has begun for victims to start up their businesses again. News Central's Chizoba Anyuwe visited the scene of the inferno again for an update on developments and filed this report.
These children are mostly those of victims of the Sunday midnight fire incident that razed down as many as 170 shops, leading to over 1 billion naira loss. As guided, they are trying to save costs by gathering what would be useful for the reconstruction of new shops to replace the burnt ones, owing to the current economic hardship in Nigeria. They find joy doing this, while victims of the disaster have begun work to put their businesses back again. While some of them are still in shock over their losses and still in doubt about what tomorrow holds for them, others hope that government intervention will be swift.
Many of us here were poor. We are looking to what we will eat and survive to feed our family. But as governor yesterday came here, local government chairman came here. So we urged them to put us emergency help. That is where we are looking to the help is even they will provide us some zincs, or they will provide some cements and blocks and issues.
People are trying to rebuild their shops. Government is going to say that we do this and that. So unless we put our eyes and see what they are going to do, And we are not waiting for government to come and do something for us. We are trying our best now.
Governor Caleb Mutfwang, on his visit to the scene on Monday, assured of assistance to the victims while saying the market needs a facelift.
We would sit down together with the market leaders, with the Just North local government administration, and see how we can be able to rejig this market with a view to modernizing it so that in the next, it can last for several more years to come, that the newer generation will find a functional market that is in tandem with modern times. All the requests that the traders have made, we will look into them dispassionately. We will see how we can be able to prevent future occurrences of this type.
As much as everyone is hopeful for a better tomorrow regarding reconstruction of the market, it is equally important to detect the cause of the fire as well as a lasting solution to avoid a recurrence. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyuwi.
And now, due to the continuous fuel crisis and its skyrocketing price, the Nigerian government introduced the compressed natural gas CNG initiative. The governor said this to reduce the hardship of the people and move the automotive sector to cleaner energy. Our correspondent Adebola Adeduba takes a closer look.
In June 2023, the average petrol price in Nigeria reached 532 naira per litre, a drastic increase of 208% from the preceding year. Following series of fuel scarcity this year, the present pump price stands at an average of 1,025 naira.
Last year, I used to have a fill-up of between 12,000 and 15,000. And this year, my fill-up is above 40,000.
In a bid to ease the burden of high price of petrol and also transition Nigerian vehicles to cleaner energy, the government introduced CNG initiative, compressed natural gas, in May 2023, but listed approved centers September 2024. But how well have people received this initiative?
For me, I don't want to take that risk. Let me be managing what I know for now, other than to venture into such an unknown cause. At the end of the day, the regret will be very, very, very massive. So I don't want to.
I would really like to wait for when they bring it on board, and I've seen samples of people who have experimented on it, so that I will know the outcome and at that time my decision can be made. But for now, I insist I will stay on the one we are in, the petrol one now.
Mama repo 65,000 every day. Coprolite, àwọn èrò gan ogun náà ń kanra torí pé kí ni owó mọ́tò tí wọ́n jù. Àwọn náà tafẹ́ gbé wọn náà, epo ta fi ń repo almost something a day. But wọ́n fi gáàsì nísìn, mọ̀ pé gáàsì ò lè tó yẹn.
With the campaign for adoption of CNG, there are concerns bordering on safety, but experts believe those fears are exaggerated.
Natural gas is still the safest. It is safer than petrol, safer than even the gas used at home. The gas at home is even more dangerous, more volatile, sorry, let me not use that word, more volatile than this gas. What happened in Benin is a very sorry case where some people think that they can weld the tank. The technology for CNG tanks is such that it is seamless. There is no welded part on it.
We do it with a certified federal government center, then you are rest assured of the materials that they are using. You do a walk-around check on a daily basis. You move around the vehicle, check the cylinder area, try out to perceive smell. So the moment you are perceiving smell, so that means there is leakage. Then when you are feeling the gas, it's not advisable to stay inside the vehicle while you are feeling the gas.
It appears there's a need for continuous awareness campaigns to demonstrate the advantages of converting to CNG and possibly flexible payment options to accommodate every spectrum of the society. In Lagos for News Central, Adebola Adeduba.
Now, with the rising prevalence of cancer in the society, health experts and stakeholders have advocated for periodic screening. At an awareness campaign about cervical and breast cancer in Umuahia, The issues around vaccination, detection, management, and treatment were brought to the fore. News Central's Chinwe Ugeli reports.
The conversation centers around cancer, its prevalence, causes, and the best way to handle it.
Invasive cervical cancer incidents fell following bivalent human papillomavirus vaccination. So when we vaccinate people, we don't get cancer.
According to experts, every woman is at risk of having breast or cervical cancer, despite the remote causes often referred to.
Please go for screening. Please take the vaccine if you are eligible. Please treat. Please want to know. It is not my portion. It's not part of it.
Wife of Abia State Governor Priscilla Oti says there is need for a teamwork to ensure that cancer prevention and treatment services are accessible to all, regardless of their background or financial standing.
Every woman in Abia to join with me to champion this cause by ensuring that we cancel our daughters, sisters, mothers, female friends between the ages of 15 and 49.
Such awareness campaign is meant to drive home the message of the importance of taking seriously one's health.
It has become essential that we work together, hands on deck, boots on ground to create a healthier, cancer-free future for our communities.
A cancer survivor shares her experience whilst advocating for a healthy lifestyle. At this event, the wife of the governor ordered for a free mammogram and pap smear for 50 randomly picked women from the floor.
I went for Ikeduru. They said that I should bring 2.5 million for the radiotherapy. Then after the radiotherapy, that they will still send me to another place. There is no money. I am still crying since that very day. I don't know that my God will remember me today.
My friend survived it, so I know what it takes to be a cancer patient. So if I see a means to work hard and fight it, I wouldn't mind.
As government promotes the importance of good health for its citizens, the need to have available and affordable centers for screening and vaccination should also be made a priority in order to walk the talk. In Omaha for News Central, I am Chinwe Ugeli.
And now coming up, Malian military group calls for resignation of Prime Minister. We'll bring you the details after the break. Many thanks for staying with us on the news. Now, the news continues in West Africa, where an influential support group of the Malian junta has called for the resignation of civilian Prime Minister Shogel Kokale Maiga after his criticism of the ruling generals. A section of the Malian military, known as the Collective of Military Defense, CDM, is accusing Prime Minister Shogel Kokale Maiga of treason and denunciation following his criticism of the ruling generals. The group linked to the junta, Assimi Goita, is demanding Maiga's resignation within 72 hours, calling his actions high treason. Appointed by the military in 2021 following Mali's second coup in a year, Prime Minister Shogel Kokale Maiga publicly criticized the junta on November 16 during events marking the November 2023 recapture of Kidal.
Monsieur le Président de la Transition, pour votre propre sécurité et pour le bien-être de notre pays, les Maliens vous prient de prendre pleinement acte des actions de votre Premier ministre, car une séparation s'avère préférable à ce stade. Il pourrait en effet vous vendre aux nombreux ennemis qui guettent notre nation. Que Dieu la préserve.
Jamais vu. C'est une humiliation totale en dehors de notre pays. Au niveau international, on dit, si ce n'est pas le Mali, on n'a jamais vu un PM aller à l'encontre de son propre gouvernement, critiquer son gouvernement. Et c'est une déception totale pour tous les Maliens. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes venus commémorer la reprise de Kidal et dénoncer son attitude qui n'a pas été correcte envers le peuple malien. Il a trahi le peuple malien. Parce qu'on peut...
Je dis, si j'étais le Premier ministre, si je suis conscient que je suis mal à l'aise dans un système, vous m'avez appelé, vous m'avez donné une responsabilité et que je ne vois pas mon rôle, je n'arrive pas à faire mon travail, je te remets ton travail. Cherche une autre personne plus compétente que moi et moins bavard. C'est tellement facile.
Now, in East Africa, the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, KNCHR, has condemned the abduction and deportation of Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye. The commission called on the government to refrain from deporting individuals who may be seeking asylum in Kenya. This comes after Besigye, an ally turned critic of Museveni, who has ruled Uganda with an iron fist since 1986, was reportedly kidnapped in Kenya and detained in a Kampala military prison.
We condemn any form of abduction of those people who seek asylum in our country. Kenya is a country that respects its obligations, and we want to call upon the government not to deport those people who are seeking asylum in our country. They should abide by international law that requires them to respect the law.
Now, similarly, UN official and wife of leading opposition leader in Uganda, Winnie Byanyima, has demanded the release of her husband, Kizza Besigye, who, according to her, has been kidnapped and is being held in a military jail in Kampala. According to Byanyima, Besigye was kidnapped last Saturday while he was in Nairobi to attend a book launch by Kenyan opposition politician Martha Karua. In recent months, Ugandan authorities have intensified their crackdown on the opposition, arresting prominent leaders and putting members of opposition parties on trial. Besigye, an ally turned critic of Museveni who has ruled Uganda since 1986, has been targeted by the authorities after several unsuccessful attempts to unseat him in elections since 2001. Now, still to come on the news, Israel vows to continue until all hostages are found dead or alive. We'll bring you the details after the break. And now to stories outside the African continent. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to continue efforts until all hostages are found and returned to Israel. Now, he said this while visiting troops in the Netzarim corridor, Israel's main military supply route. With him was Defense Minister Israel Katz, Israeli military chief Herzi Halevi. Netanyahu vowed to go after and catch up with whomever holds and does harm to Israeli hostages.
עושים מאמץ מהמקום הזה בכל מקום לאתר את חטופינו ולהשיב אותם. אנחנו לא מרפים מזה ואנחנו נמשיך לעשות את זה עד שנשיג את כולם, החיים והחללים גם יחד. ואני רוצה לומר לאלה שמחזיקים את החטופים שלנו, מי שיעז לפגוע בחטופינו, דמו בראשו. אנחנו נרדוף אתכם ואנחנו נשיג אתכם. לא לשלוט בעזה. אנחנו מחסלים את היכולות הצבאיות שלו בצורה מרשימה מאוד. אנחנו עוברים ליכולות השלטוניות שלו ועוד היד נטויה. החמאס לא יהיה
Now, police and civilian self-defense groups killed 28 alleged gang members in Port-au-Prince in an overnight operation. This was reported after Doctors Without Borders, MSF, said it is suspending operations in the Haitian capital as a result of continuing violence. According to Lionel Lazare, Haitian National Police spokesman, police opened fire on a truck carrying gang members into Pétionville, killing 10, and with the help of self-defense groups, chased down fleeing members. Reports following say the bodies were burnt in the streets, similar to last year, where 12 alleged gang members were stoned and burned alive by residents in Port-au-Prince. The government looks to regain control of the chaotic city, overrun by violent gangs with about 80% of control, despite the deployment of a UN-backed Kenyan-led international force to support the underpowered police.
Gros camion, avant bis, et puis yo vina Delco, yo vina gros armes, pic, gros mato piquet, mon cher, yo pour entrer vin installer dans Pétionville. Dans Pétionville ça, on seul petit Pétionville là, mon cher, Pétionville a prêté tête frette dans tout pays, c'est seul Pétionville qui campé. Nous pas l'autre pays encore nous pas vendre, nous pas prendre dans notre pays. Bandi yo vini droite à gauche, mon cher ça yo joindre dans ces pas yo. En pile individu qui vont annoncer de Pétionville, yo vinn craser Pétionville. Mais magistrat obligé de camper avec militaires dans zone là et puis nous tout à peuple là. C'est la solution. Nous dit tout ça qu'entrer, mon cher yo pas qu'à sortir. Yo a vini vrai mais yo pour aller sans rade.
Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has warned the general public to be cautious of fraudulent SWIFT messages and unsubstantiated claims regarding foreign currency transfers allegedly withheld by Nigerian banks on the Apex Bank itself. The warning follows a surge in petitions from private individuals, law firms, government agencies, and private entities, claiming that foreign currency funds sent to their account by foreign entities have not been credited. In a statement signed by the Acting Director of Corporate Communications, Hakama Sidi Ali, these claims are often accompanied by fake documents such as SWIFT MT-103 and SWIFT acknowledgement copies, purportedly as proof of remittance. The bank also stated its readiness to involve law enforcement agencies to investigate and prosecute individuals making illegitimate allegations. The Apex Bank clarified the standard procedure for addressing issues of non-receipt of funds, advising that the sender, rather than escalating the matter to the CBN or law enforcement agencies, should request the sending bank to trace the funds through a formal tracer process. And now to sports. Rafael Nadal's illustrious career came to a poignant end on an emotional night in Malaga as Spain suffered defeat by the Netherlands in the Davis Cup. The 38-year-old Spanish tennis great, who has won 22 Grand Slam titles, had previously announced that the men's team event would mark his final appearance in professional tennis. In front of a passionate partisan crowd, Nadal was defeated 6-4, 6-4 by Botic van de Zandschulp, as the Netherlands took an early lead to the best-of-3 quarterfinal tie. Nadal, a four-time US Open champion, has also won both the Australian Opening and Wimbledon twice. He captured Olympic singles and doubles gold medals and played a pivotal role in helping Spain win 4 Davis Cup titles, most recently in 2019.
Gracias, pues las tengo que dar yo a tanta gente que es difícil empezar de alguna manera, ¿no? Pero bueno, empezaré por los que están hoy aquí. Gracias a todos vosotros, el público.
Well, that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. We told you that soldiers were reportedly killed as military repelled Boko Haram insurgents' attack in Benue State. We also mentioned that Senate is expected to approve President Tinubu's $2.2 billion loan request today. And finally, we told you that Malian military group has called for resignation of Prime Minister. You can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Masugu.